Guys, so in this video we'll learn about sessions and authentication. Let's start. Session. So before we go further, we should know what is a session. A session is a way to store information to be used across multiple pages. Unlike cookie, the information is not stored on the user's computer. The session is used to access various pages of an entire website. A session creates a temporary directory on the server with the help of session variables and their values stored. A session is used to store information on the server rather than the client computer, which was in the case of cookies. A PHP session is used to store data on server rather than the computer of the user. So when you work with an application, you open it, do some changes, and then you close it. This is much like a session. The computer knows who you are, it knows when you start the application and when you end. But on the internet there is one problem. The web server does not know who you are and what you do, because the HTTP address does not maintain state. Session variables solve this problem by storing user information to be used across multiple pages. Example, username, favorite color, etc. By default, session variables last until the user closes the browser. So session variables hold information about one single user and are available to all pages in one application. This was a brief introduction about session. So now let us see how we start a session in PHP. A session is started with the session start function. It's a built-in function in PHP and we use it to start a function. Session variables are set with PHP global variable. Now let us create a new page called demo session 1. In this page we start a new PHP session and set some session variables. So look at the code. Here we have started a session. There we set some session variables like favorite color is green, favorite animal is cat. Now we will see how to get a PHP session variable values. We will create another demo session where we will use the previously defined session variables. From this page we will access the session information we set on the first page, that is demo session 1 page. Notice that session variables are not passed individually to each new page. Instead, they are retrieved from the session we open at the beginning of each page. The beginning of this page is demo session 1. We will use the session variables from this page and we will use them in demo session 2. Also notice that all session variables values are stored in global section. Now see this code. See, there we have used the previously defined session variables. Now if we want to modify a PHP session variable, we just overwrite it. In the first code you see the favorite color was set to green. Now in this we set favorite color to, and favorite animal is also changed. Favorite color is set to yellow. We overwrite the previous session variable which was set to green, but here we set it yellow. Now if we want to destroy a PHP session, to remove all global session variables and destroy the session, use session unset and session destroy. The code is here given and you can see how we can destroy a PHP session. SQL Server Authentication. SQL Server Authentication means the account resides in the SQL Server master database, but nowhere in the domain. The username and password are stored in the master database. If this account needs to access more than one SQL Server instance, then it has to be created on each instance. If the password needs to be changed, it needs to be changed on each instance individually to keep them all in synchronize. Use SQL Server authentication gives you the ability to override the domain security policies when it comes to the password complexity and password expiration. But this case leads to less secure accounts with elevated privileges in your database. PHP user authentication with MySQL. User authentication is a process of validating user with some keys, tokens, or any other credentials. If the user gives correct credentials, then the authentication process will be successful. After successful authentication, the user will be allowed to the system as authenticated user. This is very simple. We know all about this, how authentication. Now we will see what are the steps to create a user login authentication system in PHP. The first step is create a MySQL database with user table. We will create a MySQL database with user table. Create a login panel to submit login details. Now we'll submit all the login details, what their usernames and their passwords. Generate a query to compare user login details with MySQL user database. We'll generate a query that will compare login details with MySQL user database. And here in the end I have given some interview questions. You can have a look on them, and the answers are also given. Thank you very much.